What's going on, Jerome's? So last year, Minnesota Vikings running game was bottom of the league. It just was not good. It was not reliable. And the Vikings let go Alexander Madison. They brought in Aaron Jones across the river, and early returns were fantastic. Jones looked like he had some juice, found the fountain of youth, but there's been some wear and tear. There's been some injuries, both his hip / hamstring / ass string, as well as with the ribs. And it just the run game just has not looked the same. So the team total first 5 games, they averaged 4.28 yards per carry, which isn't great. But the last 5 games, it's gotten even worse, dropping down to 3.89 yards per carry, which is not good. Also, the Vikings in short yardage situations has been there. In red zone, it's been difficult to get something done. And it could be opponent dependent. I mean, respect to the Tennessee Titans really shutting down the Vikings running game. And Aaron Jones had a season low 2.6 yards per carry, only procuring 39 yards rushing on 15 carries. But it just, you see a noticeable slide. And it's not like the Vikings are playing slappies in the beginning of the season and the Vikings are playing world beaters in the back end. But it's notable that in Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Tennessee are towards the bottom in terms of rushing yards allowed, and the Vikings still really couldn't get a rhythm going on the ground. And with Jones, you want him to stay healthy. That's the whole thing about him too, is that we pointed out several times after he came over to the good side of the river from the greasy, grimy Green Bay Packers that Jones, who had dealt with medical issues last year and was actually fresh heading into the tail end of the season and into the playoffs, where he averaged 5.4 yards per carry, had a hat trick of touchdowns against the Cowboys in the wild card. So that's what you need. And we've seen how Jones can look like when he's good to go. So maybe the Vikings do have to dial things back, but it's a conundrum because they have to be able to run the ball, but maybe Jones shouldn't be taking as many touches as he has been, right? So the Vikings do need to get back to run the ball. Former mandate of Zimmer from back in the day, although I feel like Kevin O'Connell says a little bit nicely, right? And a couple fixes to the run game. So I do think that Cam Akers, as well as maybe a little bit of Ty Chandler, need to spell Jones a lot more. Where you look at Cam Akers, he's got some shiftiness. He can catch the ball, caught a touchdown against against Tennessee. And Akers got some shimmy. Like coming off that Achilles, he's still looking really damn good. I'm glad that the Vikings picked him up. And Ty Chandler, I know that he's been bumped down the pecking order since Cam Akers came aboard, but I still can't forget the Bengals game last year. $132, 5.7 yards per carry, and a tutty. Let's go. Free 32. I mean, I know that he got sort of bumped out because of pass blocking issues and stuff like that, but just let him run. Just let him run. Well, what is so wrong about getting your most explosive players on the field? I don't know, man. But mixing up personnel grouping. So we'll see what happens with Josh Oliver, but I love the mismatches that 12 personnel allows them. But if the Vikings go 3 wide in 11, still running out of that is great, as well as, hey, bringing back C.J. Ham. How about some 2-back sets and getting some muscle all up in there? Plus, Reisner getting acclimated quick. That's the trade-off with Ed Ingram, because Ingram is a pretty adept run blocker, but pass protection, maybe not so much. Like, hey, we need to. I know this would never fly, but how about we'll just play Ingram on running downs and Reisner on passing downs? Obviously, that will never work, but we can dream, right? And that's the thing about Reisner, too, is that even though he's been adept at pass protection, run blocking hasn't really been his forte in the National Football League, but getting him into the flow of the offensive line, getting things solidified, certainly could help things in the run game. Plus, more gap runs, and the Vikings, they love running that outside zone still, but just hat on a hat and just get after things, right? Also utilizing jet sweeps, tosses to the outside, round the outside, although it would be nice if the running backs would catch the tosses, right? As well as, now, I say this with trepidation, you could potentially use Darnold's mobility. It's sort of similar to how the Titans used Will Levis's mobility, except Jonathan Grenard really ended that quick. But I don't want to expose Darnold to injury, but a read option play here or there, that's an extra wrinkle that the defense has to prepare for, as well as could lighten up some boxes if you throw some RPO looks in there too. Could really kickstart the running game. Also, don't be so predictable, especially in the red zone, right? Just feels like whenever the Vikings get in the red zone, it's like, hey, first down, we're just going to dive it up the middle, and we'll see what happens there. But I feel like the Vikings have been very inefficient in terms of red zone running, and the Vikings, Aaron Jones only has 2 rushing touchdowns this season, which is pretty damn frustrating. But I think overall, this is a job for Kevin O'Connell, like changing things up, not being so predictable in the run game writ large, especially in the red zone. And O'Connell at his presser today did stress that the running game is much needed because it does free things up in terms of play action, in terms of really helping out Sam Darnold, keeping that rush off of him and keeping this offense viable and keeping the defense guessing. But I don't know, like Aaron Jones needs to stay healthy, and the Vikings need to get after running the ball. But also, like we said, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, or a catch-22, where do you keep feeding Jones to try and kickstart the running game, or do you ease off, give Akers more work? Don't know. But it's a coaching conundrum that I trust Kevin O'Connell to fix, because as good as Darnold in the passing game has been, I do think that the Vikings need to establish themselves on the ground, especially as these games become high leverage, and making sure that you can close in the red zone, which is going to be so important in the playoffs. But your thoughts are thoughts. How did the Vikings fix the running game? Question mark. Let us know your thoughts. Our thoughts, comment section. You guys know what to do. Skull production value.